Leamington's average home price dropped 15% in July. That's the headline. But there's a second number tucked into this same report that tells you it's really not what it looks like. So let's walk through both. And I promise it's less depressing than it sounds. I'm Linda Hakr. I'm a realtor with Jump Realty, and Leamington is one of my core markets. I live in Wheatley, so it's right next door. And because I'm right next door, I look at the town's numbers more closely than almost anything else I cover. So when there's a headline like this one that shows up, I want to be the one telling you what's exactly behind it before you see it somewhere else without my context. Okay, so the basics. 28 homes sold in Leamington in July, down about 7% from a year ago. New listings dropped more than that, over 15%. Active listings were down 8% as well. So it's quieter across the board, really. We had fewer sellers, fewer buyers, fewer homes changing hands overall. It's kind of like the whole town collectively decided to sit this month out. And honestly, that quiet across the board pattern is worth sitting with for a second, because it tells you something the price numbers alone actually won't. When both sides pull back together like this, it's rarely one group panicking. It's usually just everybody deciding independently that this just isn't the month to make a move for them. Sellers who don't have to sell, they're not listing in a slower market. Buyers who don't have to buy are giving themselves a bit more runway. Nobody's forcing anybody's hand right now, and that's actually a healthier place for a market to sit than the alternative. I say that as someone who's watched this town go through both extremes. A few years back, everything moved so fast that buyers barely had time to think, let alone negotiate. What we're seeing now is almost the mirror image of that. And while a slower market gets a worse reputation than it deserves, from where I sit, it's actually a more sustainable place for Leamington to be. Fewer people getting talked into decisions they weren't ready for. Fewer buyers waiving every condition out of pure panic. It's quieter, but quieter isn't the same thing as struggling. It's also worth remembering why people keep choosing Leamington in the first place. Slower month or not, this is the greenhouse capital of North America. It's minutes from Point Pelee. It's got the lake access that a lot of buyers are coming from bigger cities for that they just can't get without a much bigger budget. None of that changed in July. The fundamentals that make this town worth buying into didn't disappear. Because sales dipped 7% for 1 month, they're exactly why I expect this to stay a market people keep choosing, even in a slower stretch. The average sale price came in at $471,000, down 15% from a year ago. Median told a pretty similar story, down almost 13%. And if that's all you saw, you'd probably assume Leamington's homes just lost 15% of their value in 12 months. But here's why I don't think that's actually true. I want to slow down for this one. Okay, because it's the part of these reports that trips people up almost every single month, not just in Leamington. Average price is a simple calculation. You add up every single sale, you divide how many homes sold. It sounds objective, but it's incredibly sensitive to what happened to sell that particular month. If 3 or 4 sold in June and none in July, the average drops hard. And it has nothing to do with what your specific home is worth. It's just math reacting to a smaller, different sample. That's exactly the trap a 15% headline sets for people. Quick question before I get into why. So if you own in Leamington, did that 15% number actually make your stomach drop a little when you first hit it? Drop it in the comments below. I would love to know. If I'm not the only person that winced at the headline like that. I get messages about the numbers like this more than almost anything else I post. And I'd rather you hear the full picture from me than spend a whole weekend working over a stat that doesn't actually tell the whole story. So the MLS Home Price Index, the number that actually adjusts for what kind of homes actually sold, instead of just averaging whatever happened to close that month, is up 1.5% year over year. Single family benchmarks for almost 3%. So what probably happened in July is fewer of the higher priced homes sold, which drags the average and the median down, without any given home actually losing that much value. Your house didn't get less nice overnight. In other words, this is honestly the single most important distinction I try to get across every single month, because it's the difference between a homeowner making a calm, informed decision and a homeowner panicking over a number that isn't really about their house at all. The average and the median are describing the mix of what was sold. The benchmark is describing value. They're answering two completely different questions, and the headline almost always leads with the wrong one. Homes, they did take longer to sell, for sure, for what it's worth. The median days on market was 23, up from 14 a year ago. But the sale to list ratio barely moved, 99.6 this year versus 100.9 last year. So homes are still selling pretty much right around asking, not at the same steep discount. They're just in less of a rush about it. If anything, that combination, more time on the market, like the ratio basically unchanged, tells a pretty reassuring story. It means buyers aren't showing up and lowballing sellers into submission. They're just taking a bit longer to decide. And sellers who are priced right are still getting close to full asking once a buyer commits. In my own showings this summer, that's exactly what I've been seeing. Buyers who want a second look, who want to sleep on it, who want to bring a parent or a contractor through before they commit. Nobody's rushing anyone into anything. And honestly, that makes for calmer transactions on both sides of this table. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Does 23 days on market feel long to you? Or does that actually sound pretty normal for this kind of town? Year to date, it's 173 sales so far in 26 versus 193 over the same stretch last year. On 441 new listings compared to 482. So slower consistently all year, not just a 1 month thing. I think that's actually useful context because it means July isn't some weird outlier month that's going to snap back to normal next month. This has been the pattern for a while now. Leamington's had a steady, gradual cool down all year. Not a sudden July stumble. And a steady trend is a lot easier to plan around than a random 1 month spike. Whichever side of the transaction you're on, it tells you something about the type of slowdown this is. A sudden 1 month crash usually means something specific happened. A rate shock, some local disruption, there's a reason for it. A slow, steady drift over an entire year, the way we're seeing in Leamington, usually just means buyers and sellers are gradually recalibrating together. Both sides adjusting expectations at roughly the same pace. That's a very different thing to plan around than a sudden shock would be. And it's part of why I don't think anyone needs to panic over any single month's numbers here. And this one included. If you're thinking about selling in Leamington, don't let that 15% number scare you into underpricing. Both the benchmark and the sale to list ratio say values have actually held up better than the average price makes it look. Just plan for a bit more time. Homes are taking longer to sell than they were a year ago, and patience is genuinely the move here. I'd also say lean into good photos and a clean presentation more than ever right now, because when buyers have more time and more options, the home that stands out visually are the ones getting the second showings. A listing that just sits there looking average in a slower market gets skipped over a lot faster than it would have 2 years ago. And if you're the type who wants a second opinion before you list, that's exactly what I'm here for. I'd rather walk your specific street with you and give you the real numbers than have you anchor on a countywide average that might not reflect your block at all. If you're buying, you've got more time and less competition than you'd have a year or two back. But I wouldn't walk in expecting some huge discount because the data just doesn't back that up, even if the headline number seems to be practically begging you to lowball them. A seller who's seen the benchmark numbers isn't going to take an offer that assumes their house lost 15% of its value, and honestly, they shouldn't. Come in informed instead of aggressive. You'll get a lot further with a fair offer and a bit of patience than with a number that's based on a headline instead of the actual data. And if you're not sure what fair looks like on a specific street, that's the exact kind of thing that I can put together for you before you write anything. A 5-minute conversation can save you from either overpaying or losing a good house to a lowball that never had a chance. Are you watching Leamington as a buyer or as a seller? Or are you just keeping tabs on the market here for your own equity? Drop a comment below and let me know. It genuinely helps me figure out what to dig into next. If this was helpful, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Drop a comment below if you want me to dig into any specific area or neighborhood next time. I'm happy to do that. I can pull the numbers for whatever. Kingsville's doing the exact opposite of Leamington this month. Sales up 57% while prices barely moved. Watch that one next up here. It's a pretty wild contrast right next door. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.